All right, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen, and I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I wanted to welcome you back to another edition of your Adrenal Fix. Today I want to talk to you about adrenal fatigue and cellular hypothyroidism, not glandular hypothyroidism, cellular hypothyroidism, something that your doctors probably never heard about. So this applies to all of you guys that are suffering with an adrenal fatigue problem, are exhausted, are burnt out, aren't able to lose weight, have brain fog, are slow starters in the morning, need so much sleep, and no matter how much sleep you get, you don't feel like you're recuperated or you're regenerated, and you can't lose weight, you have some brain fog, you have joint pains, and you crash in the middle of the day, you have gastrointestinal problems, maybe you're losing your hair, and then the worst part of it all is you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you your blood tests are normal. There's nothing wrong with your thyroid. Your thyroid's perfect. And you know that something's wrong, and then you go to an endocrinologist and they tell you that nothing is wrong, and then you go to a gastrointestinal doctor and they all look at you like you're crazy. They say there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue, that it's all in your head, your blood tests are normal, and you probably should go to a psychiatrist or you should be put on anti-anxiety or antidepressive medications. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a case study with a patient that I won't talk to you about who she is, what her name is, but I want to talk to you about some of the findings that we've had, because all of these things were the things that she's been told. She's been to a number of different doctors, told that there's nothing wrong with her thyroid. And she was really, really happy today to find out that she wasn't crazy. Even though she has a bunch of problems going on, there's nothing better than confirming your suspicions that A, you're not crazy, B, that there actually is something wrong, and most importantly, C, you can do something about it. So let's talk about cellular hypothyroidism. So in her case, which was really, really interesting, at the production level, her TSH was normal. So let's take a look at it. Her TSH from a lab range should be 0.4 to 4.5. And from a healthy range, it should be 1.8 to 3.0. In her case, she was, let me just check here, I'm looking at her values. She was at 2.04. So she was in a normal range, and that's good. That's basically the pituitary isn't being told, or the brain, the hypothalamus, isn't signaling to the pituitary, hey, you got to go wake up the thyroid. It's a little cold in here. You got to put more logs on the fire. Now, she told me in the past she's been 5, she's been 6, and really what's happened is her thyroid has been slow. And I use the example of, imagine you're going uphill in a car, and your thyroid is the car and it's the engine, and your gas pedal is the pituitary, and the hypothalamus is the sensor of the resistance going up that hill. It tells your brain tells your foot, hey, you got to put more pedal to the metal to get over the hump. So that would be a high TSH. And that would be, hey, there's some kind of intensity, there's some kind of roadblock, or there's some kind of resistance that we need to speed up your metabolism to deal with this. So she didn't have that anymore. Her TSH was normal. Her pituitary was telling her thyroid, hey, we're happy with your production, you don't need to produce anymore. And then when we looked at her T4, from a lab range, I believe it is 4.5 to 12, and from a healthy range, it is 6 to 12, and her value was 6.9. And so these two values are what traditional medical doctors would look at. They'd look at your TSH, how is the message being sent to the thyroid, and then they'd look at your T4, how is your thyroid producing? And that's why they would tell you, hey, you're crazy, there's nothing wrong with you, your thyroid is working. But here's the thing, it doesn't stop there. It's only where that starts, meaning your thyroid hormone has to be signaled, it has to be produced, and then it has to be taken to the cells to be able to work. And T4 is not the active hormone. T3 is the active hormone. And when we looked at her values, T3, which most doctors aren't even measuring, ideally should be 100 to 180. And I think on the blood test, let's tell you what the blood test for T3 should be. T3, the blood tests are 71 to 181. And so there's a big discrepancy there. between what should be healthy and what is normal, or lab range, which means not normal. She didn't get the idea of what's the difference between the lab ranges and the functional healthy ranges. And I told her, think of it as the lab ranges are 2 standard deviations. And if you're not sicker than the average sick person, you're being told you're normal. But that doesn't mean you're necessarily healthy. Whereas when you look at the functional ranges, it's 1 standard deviation, and you don't wait for you to get really, really sick before you do anything about it. And so, you know, when you're getting an insurance policy and they're comparing you to a healthy person to see what you should be paying for a premium, they're not comparing you to a sick person. They're comparing you to a healthy person. But when it comes time to measure your blood results and determine if there's anything wrong with you, they're comparing you to a sick person. And that's a problem. So anyways, her T3 was, looking at it, was 84. So she was normal from the lab ranges, but she was low from the healthy ranges. So now all of a sudden we're starting to see a glitch here, but doctors aren't really looking at this. What we're seeing is T3 is low, but T4 is high. How can that be? Well, 60% of the conversion of T4 to T3 takes place in the liver, and 20% takes place in the GI system, and then another 20% takes place in the peripheral tissues. So we can get a good idea if she's not converting very well from T4 to T3, then probably there's a liver problem. And however, when we looked at her liver enzymes, and that's what typical doctors will look at, her liver enzymes were 15 and 11. And doctors look at it and says, if it's higher than 42, we're going to flag it. So they're going to just cross liver off the list and say liver's not a problem. But this is the first instance where we see liver being a problem. And we're going to see a couple other instances where liver is being a problem. And we can see that she's got a cellular hypothyroid problem. So at the glandular level, her gland is working properly, meaning the brain is telling the thyroid to work normally. It's not telling it to work harder or to work slower. She's not on any thyroid medications. The foot is pushing on the gas pedal in the way that it should. It's not pushing down more to be able to overcome the resistance. So she's producing enough hormone at the glandular level, but it starts to break down at the processing plant, meaning T4 is the inactive hormone that the thyroid makes, and T3 is the active hormone, and it's got to be converted into the active form by taking away one of the T's. Right? And so what they do is they take one of the T's away by going to, because T4 is 4 T's and T3 is 3 T's. So they take it to the liver to be processed, and they take it to the gut to be processed, and they take it to the peripheral tissues to be processed. And we see that it's not processing well. It's low. She's got a low conversion problem. And there's a lot of things that can go into that, but suffice it to say, liver and gastrointestinal system is not working so great. Then what we do is we look at her reverse T3. And her reverse T3 is made in the gastrointestinal system. And the gastrointestinal system, we already kind of have a feeling it's not doing so great. And her reverse T3 is 19.7. Now, on the lab ranges, it says, I believe it says, let's take a look, and I don't memorize the lab ranges, although I will after I do this one, is the lab ranges for reverse T3 is 9.2 to 24.1. From a healthy range, though, we like to see it less than 12. So she is 19.7. And so what we do is we look at the ratio of free T3 to reverse T3, and we want to see that be greater than 20%. And when we looked at her values, her ratio of free T3 to reverse T3 was 13%. So that means her brain is working properly, her hypothalamus is telling the pituitary to tell the thyroid to make T4, and that's happening, not a problem. And that's the first time that that's happened, that it's not a problem. So there's a whole other thing to discuss as to why that happened. Perhaps she's getting better. Perhaps she's getting more nutrients like selenium and zinc and stuff that you need for your thyroid to work better, and iodine. Or perhaps she's not in a resistance where she's having to put more pedal to the metal and she's not under the same amount of stressors. But what we see the breakdown start to happen is when we look at her T3 values, which is her active hormone, which 60% of it is converted in the liver, it's low. And we also know that the gastrointestinal system makes reverse T3, which is high. So we know both liver and gastrointestinal system is not doing a good job. Now what we look at is we look at, okay, if she's producing enough T4, the thyroid doesn't have a hypothyroid problem, but her processing plant isn't converting T4 and T3 very well, and she's making more reverse T3, what's happening is she's not getting the active hormone into the cell. And that's what we just looked at. We looked at the ratio of free T3 to reverse T3, and she should have at least a 20% ratio getting into the cell, but she's at 13%. So that's called cellular hypothyroid problem. That's a cellular hypothyroid problem. But we saw two other instances. So we saw one instance here where she's got an underconversion problem where she's not converting T4 into T3. We also see here that her triglycerides were 55. And most doctors will say, great, you want it below 100, that's no problem. But we like to see her triglycerides be about 75. Triglycerides are a marker of your stored fat. And where is the stored fat stored? It's stored in the liver. So that's a second thing that we see pointing to the liver, but she didn't have AST and ALT be high. So the doctors are just going to say, nope, no problem on the liver, everything's working well. But when you look at it from a metabolic standpoint, you see, hey, she's not converting T4 into T3. Hey, she's got low triglycerides. That's a problem. So that's 2 points for the liver. Then we looked at her ferritin levels, and her ferritin levels were 33. And we usually like to see ferritin around 75 as well. And so where is ferritin stored? It's stored in the liver. So that's 3 things. Her liver's not storing. Maybe her liver's under stress. Maybe she's got exposures to chemicals and toxins and pollutants. And maybe she has an iron deficiency, which she does. The liver needs iron for phase 1 of clearing things out. And so, or maybe she's got methylation issues and there's a SNP or SNPs, and we're going to be waiting for her test results to figure that out. But one of the other things we look at is with liver, we look at GGTP, and we like to see it between 10 and 60, and hers was 7. So that means she's not producing a lot of the enzymes that help conjugate and make glutathione. And if you're not making glutathione, you're not detoxifying. So now we have 4 things that point to the liver. We have an underconversion problem of T4 to T3. We're not storing a lot of triglycerides. We're not storing a lot of iron. And we have low glutathione. Yet she was told that there's nothing wrong with her. So this is why she was so happy, finally, to find out what's going on. One of the other things that we really saw to be a huge problem were her white blood cells. So her white blood cells were really, really low, and that's usually indicative of a viral infection. And then we saw her lymphocytes be really, really high, and that's also indicative of a viral infection. So what happens is she has a viral infection. She doesn't methylate very well, so she doesn't turn off the expression of that virus. She has low-grade inflammation, which is consuming her resources and draining her adrenal glands. And in the past, her thyroid has been, her TSH has been high because her body has a resistance. It has to overcome that and speed up the metabolism. But right now, what's happening is her body's underconverting T3, the active hormone. It's producing too much inactive hormone, reverse T3, and she's not detoxifying. So we're putting a plan together to stabilize her glucose, start to take her ketone and glucose levels, start to understand the foods that she's eating that she reacts to, start to help bring back her raw materials like the glutathione and nutritional deficiencies that she needs to work her thyroid, and really get her life back. So that's sort of a case study on what it's going to take to fix your adrenal fatigue problem. Notice that we didn't give her any adrenal supplements. We looked at mainly supporting her gut health, supporting her glutathione, supporting her minerals, supporting her digestive processes, supporting her microbiome, and then all of a sudden, hey, her liver's working better. Hey, her T4 is converting into T3 better. Hey, her reverse T3 is low. Hey, her T3 to reverse T3 ratio is better, and she doesn't have a cellular hypothyroid problem. Now we start to look at what's the Epstein, if she's got Epstein-Barr or she's got a major virus. And I've talked to a lot of people that have told me, yeah, I know I have Epstein-Barr, and I went on an Epstein-Barr protocol and I crashed. Well, yeah, you got a cellular hypothyroid problem, you got low iron, you got low cholesterol, low fatty acids, which are necessary to make bile, which is necessary to help make cell membranes, and it's necessary to make hormones. And if you're low on that, and your metabolism is low, and your mineral concentration is low, and your oxygen consumption is overwhelmed with inflammation, like any fire would be, how do you expect Epstein-Barr virus protocols to fix all that? You got so much other work to do, but the great news is we're identifying things. So anyways, I hope that was helpful for you. I wanted to tell you guys a little bit of an adrenal fatigue ninja move, and that's what one is. So my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I look forward to ending your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Thank you so much.